Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. I'm your host, James Gardner, certified athletic therapist, certified strength and conditioning specialist, yoga instructor, human being. This platform, for the pros, by the pros, anybody in the performance space, and beyond. Welcome here to share in the stories of professionals, experiences, journeys, learning along the way. It's a platform to connect, to network, and to be a part of a community that cares, with conversations that matter, experiences that resonate, and generate ideas, thought-provoking, organic dialogue, passionate pros. Brought to you as always by First Star Therapy, Mobility Tape, Epic, and Benchmark Athletics. In association with the Canadian Athletic Therapists Association. It's First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast. Thanks for being here. Thank you for being a part of it. Welcome to First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy roundtable brought to you by First Star Therapy. I'm your host, James Gardner, and this is a platform for the pros, by the pros. Passionate pros, organic dialogue. Let's chat. Thanks for listening. Let's roll. First Star Let's Chat. We are rolling. We're live here, part 3 of 3, Women in Sports. An amazing panel of guests today with a series of topics that will no doubt provide so much insight, hopefully a lot more questioning and a lot more interest, and highlighting things that need to be talked about on a regular basis and can make their way into all walks of life, whether you're an athlete, a coach, a practitioner, a parent, a human being. All of these topics matter. All of these things are front and center. And again, expertise and experience is on the line. Bringing that to you today. Part 3 of 3, First Star Let's Chat, Women in Sports, brought to you by Mobility Tape for Her, the latest line from Mobility Tape. Check them out, Mobility Tape for Her on Instagram, mobilitytapeforher.com online. Our secondary sponsors are Epic, that's live.epic on Instagram, and Benchmark Athletics at Benchmark Athletics online. All of our guests will have a chance to share some of their expertise. I'm going to have dogs barking. Things are going to be happening. We're going to stay at home in Ontario. Why not learn from some amazing human beings? Kristin Bignell, Michaela Zettel, Cassie Hay, Ryan Metzger, Alexandra Poletto, and Ella Matucci, hosted by Jennifer Bell, who was gracious enough to step into that role today. Here we go. Jennifer Bell, a certified athletic therapist for the past 15 years. She has numerous continuing education courses that she implements in her practice and is currently pursuing her master's in human kinetics. On top of her work as an athletic therapist, she also sits on several committees, both provincially and nationally. She currently serves as the head athletic therapist at the Hill Academy, and prior to this was the head athletic therapist at Humber College for 14 years. Away from work, Jennifer is a busy mom to 3 young children who enjoy participating in sports and activities themselves. So before we get going, Jen, thank you so much for playing host. Everybody who's here on the panel, thank you so much for your time. This is truly about community. It's truly about sharing something that each and every one of us is passionate about. I'm going to fade into the background, Jen. I'll hand the mic over to you, and I've got two notebooks, 3 highlighters, and 4 pens handy. I hope everybody else does as well. Welcome aboard, guys. Thank you so much for being here. This is going to be absolutely amazing. No added pressure. You're up, Jen. Thank you.
Thanks, James. And thank you for the invite. When you started talking to me about this session, it certainly got me very, very excited. 2 of my 3 kids are girls. And so both are actively involved in sport. And so to be able to be on a panel with all of these panelists is an amazing opportunity. And I'm very humbled to be here with all of you. We'll start things off with Ryan Metzger. So Ryan is in her second year as the Senior Assistant of Olympic Sports Strength and Conditioning at Clemson University. She is directly responsible for the strength and conditioning efforts of softball and women's soccer, as well as having direct oversight of all volunteer interns. She has earned a Master of Science from the University of Kentucky and holds CSCS and RSCA designations through the NSCA. She is also a level 1 sports performance coach through USAW and is FMS level 1 certified, FCS certified, as well as being first aid, CPR, AED certified. Today, Ryan's going to talk to us about women as leaders. Over to you, Ryan.
Well, thank you. Thank you to James and Jennifer. Thank you for the introduction. A little bit of a background on this. James asked me to be on, and I had no idea what I would talk about. So how fitting for a strength and conditioning coach to talk about nothing related to strength and conditioning. I just wanted to highlight the fact that strength and conditioning coaches are a lot more than people that just count reps and sets. And oftentimes we are pushed into these leadership roles. You're in front of a group of athletes that oftentimes, at least in my position, I think are really young and impressionable. They're 18 to 22 years old. And I just wanted to highlight some great leadership and communication strategies that can be used if you find yourself in that position. So I've got a quick little PowerPoint that hopefully we will have no technological glitches as we move forward. Oops, I'm already messed up. All right, so as I mentioned, we'll just talk about some leadership and communication strategies through this PowerPoint. So first thing on here, I just want to talk about some leadership styles, and I'm not going to go into all of these different styles, but I just want there to be awareness that there is a multitude of them. And as you go through some of the descriptions of these, you may find that you are one in particular, or you are a blend of multiple, which is totally fine. So like a democratic takes input from other people, but ultimately makes a decision by themselves, whereas autocratic does the complete opposite. But then you may find that you are like a coach style. So you find the strength in the individual and grow and nurture that so that your team gets better. So like I said, many different styles. I don't want to go into them. This PowerPoint is not about style, but more so about ways to make your style more effective and efficient. So how this all came about, I personally love reading about leadership and communication strategies. This stuff really just fills my tank. I think it is a huge part and aspect of the job that I have, and maybe your jobs are different, so you find this to be important in a different aspect of your life, but I think this is a useful tool when managing people in general. So this came from the Leadership Strategies and Tactics book by Jocko Willink, and I'm not doing a book review, so don't worry about that. Just some key concepts that we can take away as far as strategy is concerned. So the first part on here that I want to talk about is detach. And so I think a lot of times people associate the word detach or detachment with a negative. And in this instance, with being a leader, detachment is actually very positive, and it's one of the most powerful tools that you can have as a leader. And so what this means is that you're not getting so absorbed into the details that you have tunnel vision and you're unable to see all of the potential red flags or problems that come up. As the leader, it's your job to kind of zoom out, pull back, and see the big picture so that you can view things from multiple angles. Oftentimes you will find if you are in a leadership role, you have many people that work under you or with you that have the ability to kind of get lost in the detail, and that's perfectly fine for them. But as the leader, you need to be able to kind of detach, pull back, and view everything from a bigger picture. The downside of this is that there is potential to zoom out too far and lose all connection to whatever is going on. So if you find that that is the case, you just need to reevaluate, zoom back in, and get in touch with some of the details. This next topic, relationships, Basically, for me, I've been finding that this is the foundation for any great leader in any kind of platform. Your ability to form relationships, and not just a relationship, but a trustworthy relationship, is going to be crucial to your ability to lead people. Great relationships that are trustworthy then equals communication, and the more effective communication that you have, the stronger your team is going to be. And an easy way to form great relationships and trustworthy relationships is performance. So from a job standpoint, let's say that you are given a task and a deadline, and you complete that task to the best of your ability at the specified deadline. That shows that you are capable and you're someone that can come through, and that reinforces the relationship. On a personal side, let's say that you have a friend that you say, I'm going to be here at this time to support you on this date, and you follow through and you do that. Again, that helps to reinforce the relationship with even that person. So again, this is going to be a huge foundation for everything, and a lot of my points come back to how important this is. The next thing on here is truth. And so truth and honesty can be considered one of the most essential leadership qualities. It's very, very easy to be a leader or be in this powerful position and everything is going great and you've got great things to say to everybody. It is very tough to do when you have to address a hard truth. And so if you are someone that does not like to address a hard truth and you avoid, eventually the truth will come out. And once it comes out from not you, it breaks the trust in the relationship that you may have had with that person. So the best way for it to be easy or easier to tell a hard truth is one, again, those relationships. So reinforcing that trustworthiness between you and another person. Having established communication. So constantly talk, whether it's an email, a phone call, a text message, something that you are constantly communicating with people. It's going to make it a lot easier to tell the truth to them, because if the only time they're ever hearing from you is when it is negative, they're going to be a lot more turned off to what you have to say, and a lot of times they become defensive in their approach. When telling the truth to someone, super, super important that it is not a time to have harsh judgment or criticize, but more so you want to be able to utilize tact, have consideration and some delicacy in your delivery. And oftentimes I think about how would I want this to be presented to me if the roles were reversed. And then the last thing is being a leader, being someone that can silence any rumors. So if there is something going around and it's been given light by multiple people, you as the leader just need to be able to shut that down and tell the truth. The last point that I'm going to talk about on here, do the work. So whether you're a leader in title or position or whatever it may be, being a leader doesn't make that person superior. So just make sure that if you find yourself in that position, you find an ability to do tasks that don't require any leadership as you do them. And the reason behind this, again, it builds those great relationships with those around you. You can then observe the interactions between yourself and others or others on your team and see how they work in their day-to-day. I think it shows a little bit of humility that you as this person that is in a leadership role is willing to do any job. No job is too small. And also it gives you as the leader the ability to understand the demands of that position or that day-to-day and what that person faces. So understanding tasks at all levels is going to be super crucial for a person that is in that leadership role. So my final thoughts on all of this, just be humble. Understand that it is an honor to be a leader. People are looking up to you to make the right decisions. Work hard. Again, no job is too small. There was one point in time, I'm sure that if you were working your way up the ranks, you were so excited to get to do the job that you had at that time that it's nice to just remember what that was like and complete that work as well. And then again, to my last point, treat everyone with respect and take care of your people, because you want to keep building those great relationships. And that is it.
Awesome. Thanks, Ryan. Leadership is definitely something, whether you're on the athlete side of things, the practitioner side, it is an area that we all need to work on. You never know when you're going to be put into that leadership role. Some great tips for becoming a great leader. I also like the shout out to Jocko. He's a fan favorite in our house.
Awesome.
Often listening to his podcasts. So definitely some great words of wisdom from him. Next, we're going to move on to Kristin Bignell. Kristin is a registered physical therapist, neurofunctional sports performance practitioner, and neurofunctional acupuncture provider with a special interest in working with female volleyball players. Kristin played NCAA Division I volleyball at the University of Buffalo, where she completed a degree in exercise science before attending the University of Toronto for her master's in physical therapy. Her experience with sport and injury are what led her to pursue a career in physical therapy and why she is so passionate about empowering young female athletes in their health and sport. In 2020, she opened her own physiotherapy practice, East Mill Physio, and in 2021, she started ACE Performance, which together serve her mission of supporting lifelong athleticism through integrative physical therapy and educational programs focused on female athlete development. And that is what her topic is going to be on today, female athlete development. Over to you, Kristin.
Thank you so much. So like Jen said, my main area of interest with both the physical therapy side and the educational side of my work is in supporting female athlete development. And so that would be anyone from the ages of 9 up till like 30 years of age. It's a population that I really love working with, and I think provides such an amazing opportunity to help set female athletes up for success in sport. So keeping them feeling good while they're playing, helping them perform their best, and supporting them through their development means helping them understand the changes that are occurring in their body, teaching them movement strategies that will adapt with them as they develop, providing health and movement screening, educating them about their bodies, and providing them with individualized support that's going to take into account the changes that occur in their body within the context of the sports or activities that they love to do. And this really is a team approach. We often think of young athletes as being generally healthy, and barring the odd acute injury, they're pretty resilient and often don't have any major issues. And if they do suffer an injury, they tend to recover pretty well without any sort of noticeable deficits. But when we look further down the line, like 5, 10, 20 years down the line, the skills and knowledge gained during development and the injuries experienced are really what are going to pave the way, good or bad, for their time in sport. And so we need to continue to work on taking a proactive approach to health and performance planning for female athletes. So in female athletes, the kind of sweet spot to start supporting development with respect to injury prevention and performance planning is 9 to 13 years of age. And so this magic window, as it's been called, I first learned that term from Dr. Julie Granger. And this is when young female athletes are most vulnerable to injury and burnout. It's also when they start experiencing significant changes in their bodies that start to differentiate them from boys. So as they're going through puberty, there are a number of changes that occur that have the ability to impact performance, health, injury risk, if not met with proper understanding and strategy. So physiologically, their hormones are changing, which is going to change everything, impacts everything. Physically, they're undergoing rapid growth of their bones, which is going to place them at an increased risk of injury as their brain and their neuromuscular system try to keep up with this rapid growth. As a result, they might also experience a change in coordination, speed, power, strength, and this challenge is going to be further accentuated in young girls who are taller. So if you think of sports that have a higher proportion of taller female athletes, this is going to be that much more important. And then there's also the development of breast tissue changes in fat distribution, which can impact their body image, their center of mass, their postural alignment, their movement. And from the onset of puberty, the female pelvis also begins to widen, which is unique, and it continues to do so until menopause. So as you can imagine, this is going to impact the alignment of the lower extremities, as well as the demands placed on the muscles of the pelvic girdle. And Michaela shortly is going to discuss some of the potential consequences of this change and is going to touch on one of the strategies that we can start to teach at this time in order to facilitate this transition, thereby working to promote optimal performance and decrease injury risk. So neurologically, in this sweet spot, the brain has finished its physical growth and is in the process of synaptic pruning. So a process of refining the neural circuitry and firing patterns that are going to set the foundational firing patterns that are going to persist into adulthood. So they're losing less used connections, and they're going to be strengthening the ones that are practiced. So essentially, they're in this state of rewiring. And this is going to include thoughts, behaviors, and motor programs or motor patterning. And the wiring is going to be influenced by exposure and practice, and both of which we can influence, which is great. And when we combine this neurological priming of the brain along with the physical changes we see, there's a really great opportunity for injury prevention and prehab. And it also provides a crucial window for screening so that we can intervene early in order to avoid wiring and dysfunctional strategies. And so that would also include like making sure that even those minor injuries are fully rehabbed at this time. Because the brain is developing, it's a great time to start to lay the foundations needed for lifelong athleticism. So teaching young girls about their bodies and the changes that occur and teaching them strategies for movement that provide intrinsic feedback can be really empowering for them and can help them wire in those more optimal patterns. It's also the optimal time to build solid movement strategies and continue to work on fine-tuning physical literacy. So if we think of literacy as our ability to string together letters and words to produce meaningful communication, physical literacy is going to be the ability to string together movements and skills in order to participate in physical activity and sport. And so the more we can fine tune the strategies behind these fundamental movements, the more solid the strategy or the foundation to carry them through their time in sport. And the brain continues developing and maturing up until 30 years of age, but it's not too late to intervene. The brain is plastic, and so it is capable of change. It just becomes much harder, more challenging the older you get, but 9 to 13 is kind of the prime window for starting to work on these things. So for me personally, I had back surgery after my sophomore season, and it was the culmination of many smaller injuries, training errors, poor movement strategies, poor lack of treatment, burnout, core dysfunction, and none of them were considered major at the time, but each of those things added up and they created a significant injury. And my story might sound extreme, but it really isn't unique. And I've seen it played out time and time again in teammates and clients. And when we look back, we can often see that that picture was painted long before a major injury set in. And I really believe that the solution to this problem, or one of the solutions, one of the things we can do, is to provide programming that considers the unique needs of the developing female athlete within the context of the sport or the activities that they enjoy doing, and through education to empower them with information about their health and their movement. Much of my experience in sport was great, but it was far from ideal, and I want better for others, and I think we can do better, and things are already changing, and I'm really excited to continue offering more for this population. I think we often don't realize how much of an impact we can have on the path of women in sport by just looking up the line and seeing opportunities to intervene early in life by supporting female athletes through their development.
Amazing. I feel like that needs like a mic drop. Because I'm sure practitioners, we all see this. I'm working in a private school, which is grade 5s to high school. And this is the main issue we see with all of our athletes. I work with 2 national teams as well, same age group. And we see this with all of our female athletes. And it's an area that needs more education. We need to empower these young athletes. We need to educate the practitioners that are working with them. so that we can do better. You know, one of the things a lot of my studies have been focused on is long-term athlete development. And there is so much about doing better for our female athletes and having this knowledge. So thank you, Kristin. This is awesome. Now we'll move on to Alex. So Alex Paletto is a professional beach volleyball athlete. She competed for Colorado State University, where she completed an undergraduate degree and then moved on to USC with a competitive goal to represent Canada in the 2024 and 2028 Olympic Games. Alex continues to train at the highest level. She earned her master's degree in entrepreneurship and innovation and is an advocate for younger athletes. And Alex is going to provide us with some of her pro athlete experiences and help guide athletes to foster a mindset of internal validation.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I already want to comment so much on what Ryan and Kristin have both said, so I'm so excited to hear what Ella and Michaela have to say as well. I think what Kristin said about that she thinks that we can do better, I think we have to do better. I mean, my story and my experiences is a true testament to that, and I'll get to that in a bit. But as an athlete and how I was growing up is you're at the hand of the experts around you, and you depend on the coaches and the physios and the athletic therapists and every staff member around you to do what's best for you. And I don't think that's always what happens, and it's not anyone's fault. It's just a lack of knowledge, and that's kind of what my story stems from and my passion and how that's grown. So a little bit about me. I'm not an expert in any field, so I don't want to say what should be done and what shouldn't, but I'll just talk about my own experiences and how I have personally dealt with them. So I grew up in Ontario. I played volleyball my whole life, and I'm not sure if this was just a personal experience or coaches that never primed me for certain things, but the environment growing up here playing volleyball was, there was not a lot of education on strength and conditioning and rehabilitation side of sports. I just was never taught. My club team never offered strength and conditioning. It just wasn't something a lot of athletes did. And maybe in other sports it was more common, but volleyball, there was none. And I didn't think it was weird to have that. I didn't question it. We were only practicing twice a week. Like I played beach in the summer, and it was more of an enjoyable childhood club season. However, I went to school in the States at an NCAA Division I school, and that was not the upbringing that any of my teammates had. They all played 5 days a week, strength trained 3 times a week, and had been playing since they were 12. They were way more primed physically for the demands of college volleyball than I was. So I got there, and I had to catch up quick, which I did, but all the movement patterns that were needed to be successful were not primed. So before I could even do like bands and glute bands and thinking about those small ligaments and tendons, priming them, I was doing power cleans and snatches. And I mean, I became the strongest I had ever been very quickly. However, I also got injured very quickly. And it seemed like my whole career in college, I was always just coming back from another injury. And I had maybe 2 months that were good, and then it was come back from another injury. And it started off with small things, like ankle injuries, knee injuries, then it worked up to shoulder injuries, then it was back injuries, and it was constant, and I didn't question it. I relied upon my strength coach and my athletic therapists. They got me better in time, and I kept playing, and I didn't voice my concerns. I didn't voice my pain. And then in my junior year of college, I had really horrible shoulder pain the entire season. by December, like it couldn't even warm up. It just felt like stabbing pain while I was warming up, and took some, what was I taking? Some really intense painkiller like twice a day for like 6 months to get through everything. And by the end of the season, I was like, I need to see a doctor. This is not normal. This isn't just tendonitis, like please. I almost had to beg to go see a doctor. Doctor said, let's give it a month of rehab over Christmas break. If not, then we'll do shoulder surgery. I didn't question it. I didn't ask for a second opinion, followed their direction because, I mean, why wouldn't I listen to these experts? And then I got shoulder surgery, and there began the rehab process of that. During that rehab process, I was pressured to return as fast as possible. It was every day asking, when can you do this? When can you do this? How much longer? Have you started this yet? When can you do this? And as an athlete in a competitive environment, you want to come back as fast as possible. There's no way that you want to stay out to heal to 100%. You're dying to get back out there. People are wanting you to get back out there. And there wasn't anyone telling me, hey, no, let's wait a little bit longer. Let's be sure that you've reached all the different components of the return to play protocol. So I started playing way too soon after shoulder surgery, ended up with horrible tendonitis and lingering tears in my rotator cuff that still exist. And that forced me to sit out my entire senior year. I was encouraged to come back, pressured. My coach refused to talk to me for my entire senior year because I basically had enough of this system of pressure, and I put my foot down and said, I'm not playing until I feel like I can actually play. And it was the hardest thing I had to do, was advocate for myself. And that should not be the case. No one should feel scared to advocate for themselves. And that is something that has driven me to be passionate about trying to teach younger athletes to be advocates for themselves. No one knows you better than yourself. And as an athlete, you're always trying to please. You have this external pressure of pleasing everyone else around you, your coaches, your teammates, your parents, everyone possible, and you rarely listen to what you truly need and want. So I think there's a very important need, and maybe all the experts around me can touch on how that's actually done, but to instill a sense of authority and taking control of your own body and life, and being able to understand what actually needs to be done and thought about and focused on throughout your younger years, so that you can control your own function of your body. So I have so much more. I can talk about this forever, but I'd like to hand it over to our experts to kind of continue the knowledge-based of this conversation.
Awesome. Thanks, Alex. That question to the experts, I've tucked in my back pocket, and we'll bring that back once everybody gets through their topics, because I do think, it's a very valid question, and I think there's a lot of insight that can be provided here. As you were speaking, I've seen lots of head nods and, people understanding everything that you've been through as an athlete. And it's great to get that athlete perspective. Unfortunately, you're not alone in what you've experienced, and there's a huge push in sport to kind of flip how coaching and strength and conditioning and all of that. We see the experts coaching at the top levels and working with the top athletes, and we're not developing the younger athletes, and we're setting them up for all of this. And you're seeing that push now to try and get more education to the grassroots level and better training at the grassroots level. And hopefully that push continues, so that the up and coming athletes, we can give them a better experience and better serve them. Mm-hmm. So thank you very much for that insight. Now we'll move on to Michaela Zettel. Michaela is a registered physiotherapist and neurofunctional sports performance practitioner. Her clinical practice in still physio focuses on working with female athletes at all ages and stages, supporting them in lifelong sport and fitness participation. Her mission to empower females in their is to empower females in their health and sport performance through physiotherapy and education. And today, Michaela is going to talk to us about stress urinary incontinence. So over to you, Michaela.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much, Jen, for the introduction, and James for having me here. And it's a pleasure to be with all of these fantastic women in sport on this panel. I just can't move on without saying, Jen, what you said about that athlete development is like music to my ears, because this is something that I've been advocating for in my community for the past 5 years. And so it's really great to hear lots of people on this panel touching on the importance of setting our female athletes up for success from a much earlier age. And actually what I'm going to talk about is going to lead us into that. So I've got an eye on the time because I could spend like an hour a minimum talking about this. So I'll do my best to get it in there. So as Jen said, I'm going to be talking about stress urinary incontinence and also urge incontinence. So typically when we hear about that, we think about women who've had babies leaking urine, and we sort of allocate it to just that group. But in reality, it's happening with lots of female athletes at all different ages and stages. And we're getting a lot more data with it happening in especially elite female athletes. So if you do like a quick search, anywhere from 28 to 80% of female athletes who have not had babies are reporting stress urinary incontinence with activity. And you'll have a higher likelihood if you are an impact athlete. So if you participate in sports with a lot of impact, so think running, jumping, gymnastics. And so then you have to go, okay, well, why? Like, why would this be happening? So if a woman is postpartum, she's had a baby, she delivered vaginally or had a C-section, we know there's been an injury to the core, an injury to the pelvic floor. And so you could hypothesize that there's weakness, and there is weakness. We know that from studies. But why would this be happening in a younger population who have not had babies, have not gone through that significant postural change, have not had a trauma, damage to their pelvic floor or their core? So this is where it takes us into, the function of the core and what is the core. And so when I talk about this and when I work with athletes on this, I like to highlight something called the anticipatory core, which is the part of the core that preps us for movement. And when we think of core, there's lots of different muscles that we think of, but a lot of times we're thinking of that six pack or obliques. But the core, especially for female athletes, that I like to focus on is the anticipatory core, preps you for movement. So that includes your diaphragm for breathing, your pelvic floor, which is a hammock between your legs, and it quite literally holds your organs inside of you. And then your transverse abdominals, which are the deepest abdominal layer, and they wrap all the way around you. And multifidus is also included in this, but for what we're talking about here, I'm just going to leave that one out. And so I have my balloon demo, and now I learned this from Julie Wiebe. And if there are practitioners listening who want to learn more about this, go look up her work because it's fantastic. She's studied really in the postpartum population, and I've taken her concept and approach and applied it to our youth athletes and elite athletes who are nulliparous, so haven't had children. So diaphragm, abdominals, and pelvic floor. So we know when women are leaking urine, it's a pressure management issue. So there's increased intra-abdominal pressure, and the pelvic floor isn't able to manage that, okay? That can happen for different reasons. But again, we have to ask, well, why in this population who hasn't had children? And there are two reasons, and this is purely from my observation and work. We don't have research on this yet, to my knowledge anyways. I think it's coming. We are just learning that this is prevalent and that it can't be the same reasons for postpartum. But in my work, so as Kristin said, when female athletes, when they go through puberty, their pelvis widens, and that changes the shape of the pelvic floor. Then they also develop breast tissue, which can change the way they hold their thoracic position. So now you have alignment changes in the body that are going to influence how the system works. And that can contribute to a movement pattern that isn't optimal or as efficient. So there's physical changes that happen. And then also with a lot of athletes and a lot of female athletes, we're overtraining the abdominals. So when I work with athletes, they won't be able to lengthen, or they're using a bracing strategy for a lot of movement. And it's not to say that a bracing strategy isn't effective, but it's not dynamic. And so if you take a volleyball player, for example, who is an overhead athlete, but also jumps, they need to be able to rotate through their core and rotate to hit the ball. And if they're bracing, like even if you just try right now, like squeeze your abs and then try to rotate, it's limited. And it increases intra-abdominal pressure. So then you add the swing or the jump landing, and you can have leaking that happens. And so those are like the two reasons. We also, why we hypothesize this could be happening. We also have to consider that there could be athletes who have experienced sexual abuse. So don't, like if you work with athletes, don't rule that out as a possible contributing factor to why an athlete might be experiencing this. And so I could like spend so much more time on how that system works. And it is like your alignment and movement patterns and breath strategy that influences how well you'll use that system. So it gives us lots of potential gateways to create change. But like a few things I just want to say is that if you work with athletes, you need to be asking these questions, because they'll also almost always be experiencing other symptoms like shoulder pain, back pain, hip pain, neck pain, knee pain, because your core is your center, which controls and sets you up for movement of your extremities. So we even have research studies that show your diaphragm and pelvic floor engage before your deltoid does for movement. And so you need to be asking these questions like, are athletes leaking urine? And maybe you put it on a questionnaire if you're not comfortable asking, but these are questions that need to be part of the health intake form for sure, because it is happening more than you think it is. It's not something to pass by, because it is a symptom of dysfunction, which is a problem. And it's often overlooked because it's not asked about, or because the practitioner or someone working with them doesn't know how to help. Also, many athletes will just communicate with each other that, oh yeah, that happens to me, don't worry about it, right? So we've normalized this leaking, but it's not, just like Alexandra was saying, like you kind of normalize this like playing with pain and injuries, but it shouldn't be. It is an issue that needs to be identified. And so there's that piece. Like if you're working with athletes and they're experiencing those symptoms, you need to consider them as like they're a dysfunction. They're a sign of core dysfunction and can be contributing to a lot of other problems, as well as like quality of life, affects quality of life and pelvic health. And then really though, if you want to like get ahead of this, so you need to look back to when they go through puberty and body position changes. And they're also at the same time, they're often like selecting a sport or increasing their sport participation on top of these movement patterns that are, or these body changes that are so new to them, and they don't know how to coordinate that. So you can also use this as a preventative measure that you build foundational movements on. And what I love about it is it's unique to each athlete. It is not a recipe. Each athlete is different. Each athlete has a unique body. They will move their own way. And when you teach them something called the piston breath, which is from Julie Wiebe, it gives them that intrinsic information about their body and where they need to be and when something's working well for them and when it's not. And so I like to advocate this as like the base for movement that you can build on top of. So I'm going to wrap it up there because I could keep going, but I think it's been about 5 minutes, 6 minutes. So that's that. Yeah. And so I'm just super passionate about this because I've noticed the difference in my own practice and with the athletes I've worked with, whether they're complaining of this or not. So thank you.
Thank you, Michaela. Definitely a topic that needs to be addressed. I know in my 15 years, courses have certainly come a long way. This was something that when I first started, wasn't something that was talked about, wasn't something that was evaluated in our assessments and whatnot. And we've come a long way. Now we do need to normalize talking about it because it is an issue that affects a lot of athletes. I think we've have the normalized conversations with the moms and the postpartum and all of that, but it's not quite there yet with the athletes. So thank you for bringing attention to this because it is something that does affect a lot of the athletes that, we work with. So thank you. Now we'll move on to Ella Matucci. Ella is a dual sport athlete, as a Team Canada baseball player and professional women's it's a mouthful. Women's Professional Hockey Players Association player. Ella is a member of the 2SLGBTQ plus community and an advocate for gender equity. As female baseball and women's professional hockey do not provide a living wage, Ella holds a full-time position in communications and is currently studying to pursue a career in firefighting. Ella also actively volunteers to support diversity, equity, and inclusion initiatives. And today she's joining us to talk about gender parity and equity in professional athletics. Thank you, Ella.
Thanks so much, everyone. I think I've learned more in the last 48 minutes than I have in a very long time. So super excited to be here with everyone. And thank you for having me. I wanted to highlight ways that people can get involved and support the growth of female sports. And I know that's been touched on a little bit here today too. But first of all, I just wanted to talk about some of my experiences. So kind of similar to Alex, like I grew up in a really small town in BC and then later moved to Saskatchewan. And then I moved to going to school in the States. And then now I live in Ontario. So my experiences back home in Fruitvale, BC, I thought I was going to the NHL. I thought I was going to be in the MLB. I didn't really realize that people weren't doing things the way that I was doing things. So when I finally did end up going to school in Saskatchewan and in the States, I saw the way that people from Ontario were brought up through minor hockey and through baseball, and the fact that there was more than just one girl on a team, or they actually had a full team of female athletes playing one sport. That was ludicrous to me. That was crazy. So I think through the experiences of realizing those kind of things and seeing that, yeah, okay, there's a ton of other female athletes, not just me. Kind of got off course there, but growing up, I thought I was one of the boys. Like I didn't really see how I wasn't going to be playing in the NHL when I was growing up. And it actually took me probably a lot longer than you would think to realize the fact that there actually weren't those opportunities for females like myself in either sports that I've played. I'm lucky to be a part of an association right now. I know it is a mouthful, PWHPA, that is working towards bridging that gender parity and equity gap, and looking for a viable league for all of us girls to play within North America. So right now, just a little background. I know you guys have had Brianne Jenner come on before, and she probably spoke on it, but we have 2 teams in the United States, and we have 3 here in Canada, Calgary and Toronto and Montreal. And unfortunately, COVID sidelined our league a little bit this year just because we weren't able to get all together. We're looking to hopefully pull off, and maybe I shouldn't be saying this, an event in May. But with the numbers in Ontario, gosh, who knows? Next year, we're looking to kind of get more and more showcases, as we call them, together so that we can really showcase what we have as professional female athletes. We have a number of Canadian Olympic athletes in our program and the Americans as well. One or a couple ways that everyone can kind of get involved in supporting the PWHPA or even Baseball Canada is reposting, watching. Recently, we put out a campaign, and it was called our #StickInTheGround campaign. Actually, a couple days ago, I posted a bunch of photos on it because I was challenged by one of my fellow players to gather support and to show off really how many people are behind this movement. But one interesting thing that kind of happened as I was gathering these photos, as I was gathering all the support, is I actually reached out to the 40 plus members of my baseball, sorry, I'm getting emails, of my baseball community. I wrote in our group and I said, hey, this is something I'm doing for hockey. I know there's a bunch of hockey players in our group. If you could just send your support with a photo of you with your literally like a hockey stick in the ground, or just on a piece of paper saying stick in the ground, that would be awesome. And I was very surprised that I only received 2 photos out of probably the 40 plus that are in that group. And you know what? I actually had a hard time with that. I was just like, okay, so we're fighting for the same thing. we're fighting for equity among our sports separately, but you can't take the 5 seconds to write on a piece of paper and send me a photo. I understand you're not home, and I understand, oh, I got to do my hair and stuff like that. But I was very taken aback by that. On a positive note, I received an overwhelming response from members of my family and people that have followed kind of like my, I guess, hockey or baseball career, and just members in the community. So that's one way we can get involved. With the PWHPA, we're linked to a bunch of initiatives, and one I wanted to talk about was the Inclusion Initiative. What they do is quarterly, they sell branded shirts, hoodies, and toques and all that stuff. And all proceeds go to a different initiative every quarter. So yesterday, they just actually made an announcement of their new initiative, and it's Variety Ontario. And it's a charity that provides children with disabilities access to sports. So I just wanted to make sure to mention that. Luckily with the PWHPA, a couple of our games with our American partners were televised this year, and we were actually the first female team to ever play at Madison Square Garden. So super, super exciting. Don't know if anyone saw that. In Canada, it was a little harder to access, but it was, you were able to find it online. So I know I've kind of really ranted there. I'm just really excited about everything that the PWHPA and slowly what Baseball Canada is starting to do to bridge that gender gap or within each sport individually. So yeah.
Amazing. It is exciting to see more advocating towards, that gender parity and making awareness towards females in sports. I know not just Baseball Canada, but Baseball Ontario actually just came out with an inclusion statement promoting inclusion diversity within baseball in Ontario. So we are starting to see more of it. We've got the U.S. women's soccer that filed their legal battle. And the more we see this and the more we can stand up and support each other, we're going to push equality in sport further as well. And again, going back to that long-term athlete development model, there is a lot of talk about inclusion and opportunities for more diverse sporting opportunities and getting those involved that may not otherwise be able to. So I applaud you for advocating for this, Ella. We need more voices to be doing this. Mm-hmm. And now, last but not least, Cassie Hay, our final topic before we move into more of the conversation piece. Cassie has an advanced diploma from Algonquin College in massage therapy. Born and raised in Ottawa, Ontario, she has been involved in the athletic industry for several years. Cassie's involvement has been multifaceted as an athlete, a coach, a personal trainer, a medic, and as a therapist. She is also actively engaged as a firefighter in the Ottawa region. And today, Cassie's going to talk to us about the misconception that women are weak or unable to perform in first responder jobs. Thanks, Cassie.
So yeah, I guess this is a crazy topic because it's something that I guess became very near and dear to my heart very quickly. So I guess I originally have been a massage therapist for the past 5 years, and then went through kind of a self-reflection point in my life where I still loved massage and I still loved helping people, but I felt like I had a bigger purpose in life. I wasn't sure what that bigger purpose was. And then through patience and through criticism and, through support, I was led towards first response, which included like firefighting, paramedics, policing. I didn't know kind of what direction I wanted to go in, but I knew that was kind of where I wanted to go. So after that, I decided to go ahead and tackle and get my firefighting certificate. And as I was going through this, I'd always been an athlete my whole life. I've always been super, super active. Didn't think I would have, an issue with the physical demands of the job. And I think it was the biggest wide awakening, kind of eye-opening moment that I've ever experienced. Going into, always being strong and competing at a national level and representing my country and all that kind of stuff ended up in there. And, you know, I can't lift up a ladder above my head. So really, it kind of made me focus that there's kind of a lack in terms of like education and training and awareness as to women inside first responders. And certain departments, you can go as low as 3% of women make up the department. And you often hear from people, oh, well, the reason women are in the sport or in the sport or in this type of job is because we've lowered the athletic standards because they can't meet them. Or, oh, they do a different test because, you know, they can't meet them. But in all reality, no job is too big. If we really stick our minds to it and, you know, we train properly, all of those tasks are achievable. And I think the biggest opening, again, with me being a therapist, I pushed myself all the way through the program and I woke up sore every single day. I couldn't walk, I couldn't move, it hurt to eat, it hurt to breathe, like all that incorporated. And I knew there has to be another way to do this. This isn't the way to do it. And I started searching and there really isn't anything out there in terms of training women to be able to do these jobs. Or even training first responders in general to be able to do these jobs. And a lot of people who, like Ella had mentioned, we'd been athletes, you know what I mean? And it's very common for all athletes to go into these positions. And if there's not a ton of education or training into it, you know, how do we get into it? How do we achieve those goals? How do we set the difference? And how do we raise the fact that some departments are only made up of 3% women? And that's when I kind of went to the drawing board and used my skills as a therapist, as well as a candidate going through the process to be able to slowly develop something. And I think honestly, the pandemic was great because I was able to then really focus in on functional movements, because I didn't have access to a gym. I didn't have access to be able to go and deadlift, 350 pounds. And just focusing on functional movements allowed me to come back stronger after that pandemic break than I had ever done. And I guess that also led me to where I am today. And I am the first female to work on the operations side with a towing company. And I have to say, like, I'm at work right now. These guys are my brothers. And I've heard, horror stories of people who were the first female to get on somewhere and somebody made sure that they didn't get on. And I think I'm very fortunate that I was able to be welcomed with open arms, and can honestly call all of these guys my brothers. They'll be there for me no matter what. And I think that everyone should be able to experience that. And I don't think like kind of the mental health blocks that people go through really should be there. There are ways to do it. There is ways to have a positive outcome and to really love your life and not be sore being a first responder. So I think just tying all of it in together, and especially like Ella had mentioned, kind of just like the lack of knowledge coming through, and then like everybody kind of ties it all in together that, we may get injured and we may have to leave our sport, but there is a career there for you afterwards as well. And that this kind of all ties in together. So it's, I think it's a journey because there still isn't a lot of information out there, and I'm kind of piloting the information by almost testing it through myself. But, I feel like this is a way to tell women and to show women that, you can go out there and, work a job and be the only female on the job, or be the first female. Like our company was invented in 1957, and I'm the first female here in 2021, which, seems pretty surreal by the end of the day. So I think it's just a great way to be able to mentor and be able to show women that you can do it if you set your mind to it, and that there really isn't a need to feel scared or feel worried or feel talked down to, because we can do it.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And what a great role model for, women who are looking to get into first responder careers. I know you speak of there not being a lot out there of information on the training and whatnot. I mean, I know my husband's going through for firefighting right now, and I mean, he's a male, and I think you can count on one hand the number of these training opportunities on how to do this. And that's for everybody. Looking at the female perspective, there's not a lot out there. And I applaud you for, breaking down those barriers and pushing through to be a role model for the ones coming behind you. Thank you so much. So that ends our topics. I'm going to bring it back to you, Alex, with your the question you kind of posed to the group, because I do think this is a great way to start the conversation and discussion amongst all of us. So I'm going to put it out there to everybody. How do you instill authority and taking control of your body and your pursuit in sport and the barriers that that are placed on all of us in your particular roles and for those who are practitioners in how you work with female athletes? I think what we'll do is we'll go backwards so that Ryan doesn't have to go first again, and we'll put this question out to Cassie to start.
All right, so I'll just get you to repeat it now that I know that I'm on the hot seat.
Yeah, so how do you instill authority and take control of kind of your destiny and your path, your body, ensuring that you're laying the proper groundwork in order to pursue these passions?
So I think a lot of it comes down to knowledge. If you speak from a point of, knowledge and passion and care, you gain a lot of respect in that sense, I feel, because it can come down to, do you know what I mean? People still have that misconception. Can women do it? Are they still able to do it? Are they physically able to? And the one thing I do is, I prepare myself. I train properly. I try to eat properly. And try to give myself the freshest face I can. And especially like showing up on scene. Again, I'm a female tow operator. There's not very many of us out there. I can probably count on one hand. I literally haven't met another one yet. So it's a very odd, occurrence to see. And I'm also a small female. I'm about 5'4" and 120 pounds. So when you see me show up to a scene, I'm sure there's a ton of doubt that comes from people, but I think it's just being confident in your skills and your abilities and making sure that you are prepared. I spend hours being able to ensure that I can lift the weight and be able to carry, 60 to 80 pounds for a kilometer, so that I'm not, tired or unable to do the job. And I think a lot of it comes into, again, like knowledge. Like I'll approach a scene and, speak to the officers or speak to the firefighters and or other first responders on scene and tell them, okay, this is the plan that we're going to do. And this is why X, Y, and Z. I've had good experience with this before. And, if it doesn't work, this is a learning experience for us. So I really try to also incorporate everybody into the process as well, because then they also feel part of it. And they're going to be a lot more, I feel like, welcoming or more into it if they can feel like they can be part of the path and part of the pioneer as well. So that's kind of how I've done it. And again, really making sure to take care of your mental health and tune into those times where, you might be feeling down or sad or, need to talk to somebody. And like I said, my team, they're my brothers. And I'm sure, if we have a bad day, it could just be a quick vent or, some jokes around the shop or anything like that. And just really paying attention to your mental health, your physical health, and even like even just your knowledge base and all that kind of stuff. Always trying to be at the top of your game is kind of the best way that I do it.
Awesome. Thank you. I'm going to put it over to Ella. From the athlete perspective, I'm sure you've encountered the injuries and having to be pushed back. And how do you, take care of yourself and ensure you're not being pushed out of your comfort zone and establish the boundaries that allow you to kind of control your path?
Yeah, so I think what I've learned about myself, even like especially in the last year with work from home and having to adjust the way you're preparing for certain events and not even actually preparing for anything. Like right now, I can't tell you in the next year when I actually have my next competition event, just because it doesn't exist, unfortunately. So I've really had to figure out what works for me. Like, I'm looking at my to-do list right here, and I have like my work day, this call, I'll study a little bit, and then I'm going to build a lawnmower in my garage. And I might not work out today just because I went hard all week. I'll do it tomorrow, and then I'll do it the next day, and then I'll continue back into it. But because I really had to adjust, especially with the work from home, that there needs to be like variety in my day. And I know this was more of a like athletic, what are you doing for workouts kind of question. But lately I've really made it a priority to, one, get outside every day. I was going to say drink lots of water, but I don't drink any water. I know some of you guys are going to probably cringe at that. And I'm not someone that's going to like, I don't know. It's kind of a difficult question right now, just because I think a lot of us are in just such a different mindset with the current state that the world is in. I've been finding that a big help with my mental health has been the touch points that some of our programs have had with us. Hockey, not so much, but like with Baseball Canada, we have a call at least once every 2 weeks. And then with Baseball Ontario, they've been unbelievable. We have a call every week, and it's broken to portions. So we do like, our physical trainer comes on and does like a stretching thing with us. And then we talk about kind of what we learned. And then we talk about baseball, like things we can be working on at home. And then we do like a fun trivia. And I think that kind of stuff has really kept me in check over the last year. So I don't even know if that answered that, but that's how I feel.
Awesome. Now we'll start getting into the practitioner perspectives on this, because I think we all provide a little bit of different insight, and I'm sure we also approach our athletes and how we work with them a little bit differently as well. So Michaela, how do you empower your athletes, to take control of injuries and advocate for themselves?
Yeah, I think it's a really great question. And because I'm just going to apologize because my dog might start barking, but so the athletes I work with, I think one thing that I notice is a lot of them don't feel that they've been heard or seen when they come for an injury, like that, as if their injuries aren't as significant as they are, or a lot of times athletes feel like they've done something wrong to have this injury, like they must be not doing something right in their training or their sport. And so I spend a lot of time on education. Well, I spend a lot of time listening and validating how they're feeling, and what they've been through. And then a lot of education around, like why those injuries are happening, and that, I hear you, I believe you, I support you. But I think it's like Cassie said, it's a lot of education and then giving the tools. So not only just educating on what's going on with their body. So I'm going to speak to it from an injury perspective, but that you're educating on teaching these athletes like what's going on with the body, and then providing them with tools that are well within their ability to implement with or without me. So it's so important that they know they have things in their toolbox that they can do. And whether that's like, we set up boundaries, like you're going to go back to practice, but you're not going to hit this practice, but you're going to do everything else, right? Or like helping them build that return to play, or helping them find those boundaries, those cutoffs where like they can call it for themselves. And we've had that discussion ahead of time, so they feel more supported and validated in making those decisions for themselves when they're playing, when they're part of a team. Because I think, as Alex said, like I'm an athlete myself, like I'd always want to do better and be able to do it. And even still at my age, like I will have these conversations with myself around like, is that really necessary and helpful for me to do? And so I think it's like having that team around you, building that team around you, and then, working one-on-one with the athlete to give them tools that they can use that are within their control, that they understand for their bodies and why these things are happening, and supporting them and advocating for themselves, which means like really specific things that they can say, you know what, my knee's been hurting me for the last 20 minutes. Like that's enough. I'm going to work on my physio exercises, or, whatever it might be. It's going to be very unique to each athlete. But I think those are, and having those conversations over and over. And I also think like understanding the athlete's scenario. So if they're not comfortable talking to their coach, or they're not comfortable sharing these things. Like having that understanding and then trying to come up with a plan that everyone's going to feel good about together. And that might be bringing in the team, or it might be being that one-on-one support. So I think just really hearing the individual in front of you and knowing that they're really needing some support in learning how to advocate for themselves and feeling justified in that.
Yes, that feeling supported is so huge when we're dealing with this. Also with some of the ages of the athletes that we deal with, there's also the parental pressures that they can face as well. And that's not as easy to advocate against sometimes. So it's also arming them with the knowledge that it's okay to speak up, and it's okay. It's not going to change the relationships and whatnot, and being there as a listener. Kristin, can you provide some insight to this as well?
Yeah, I think first off, I want to say that, Alex, I can resonate with a lot of your story. Just that I think, especially as a young female athlete and in going into like a school on a scholarship where people are paying you to do something, you really feel like you do what they say. You feel like you don't really have like a voice, or you don't have a say in kind of what happens. And so I think a lot of like what I like to do is the education piece. So just letting younger female athletes and their parents know what is and is not okay in terms of like pain or injury, what is and is not okay, and how they can, like, depending on the individual, how they can navigate some of those conversations to set things up so that they can be successful. And if they're not injured, like even just knowing what to look for or listen for in their body, I think is really important, because I think things get brushed off because, either we brush them off or you go and see someone. And I think we can probably all relate to going and you go somewhere with a complaint and it kind of gets brushed off initially. So knowing what to listen for. And then, like, for me, with some of my younger athletes, like I'll see them every like 8 or so weeks during that time where things are changing a lot for them, like in that like 9 to 13 years. And we can check in and like do movement screening, check in, see how things are going. And then give them, the tools that they specifically need as they're developing, essentially. So just like serving as like kind of like a guidepost that they kind of can check in with. So someone who's like on their team. And because kind of, at that age, they're so young too, that they, can use someone who is on their side to make sure that decisions are being made in their best interest.
Yeah, that's a great tip, especially for those younger athletes, because they do need that guidance and that support, and knowing that they have somebody that they can trust that has their best interest at heart. Ryan, what's your thoughts on all of this?
Yeah, so we just do a couple things as far as my athletes are concerned. The first thing that I'll talk about is that we do a subjective questionnaire. It goes out to my athletes every single day. They complete it, and I am the only person that gets to see their answers. And so we ask them 5 different questions about, on a scale of 1 to 5, soreness, fatigue, sleep, stress, motivation to train. If there is a red flag to me, it gives me a pathway to go talk to that athlete and see what is going on. So that's one way that we build a great relationship, also open up the lines of communication, but it's a great tool to check in with them and see where they're at. I am just one person on a support staff, so I keep lines of communication open with our nutritionist, our athletic trainer, our mental health coach, sport coaches. So just checking in with all of those people, I think, help a lot. And then as far as the athlete really kind of taking ownership and voice for themselves, I allow a lot of autonomy in my workouts with my athletes. And I will find that athletes, when they're injured, they're like, I don't think I can do this today. And I'm like, give it a try. give it a try, come back and let me know. And I allow them the opportunity to at least do it, because if they've already turned off that they can't, and then they find out that they can, I think it's a great tool for them. But also it gives them a voice to tell me where we're at. And so we can adjust from there. And oftentimes I tell my athletes, like, hey, if you need to do this, I trust you, let's do this. So I think that's been really helpful in the development of them.
I love that thought of giving them a voice. It's something I see with our high school girls a lot. They do need to feel supported and empowered to know that they can do something, but they also need that voice to know that, if something doesn't feel right or their body's off today. So what a great suggestion. The education, the empowerment, all of that is how we build these future athletes and have them advocate for themselves. I know that we're getting close to time, so I'm going to put another question out there. I'm sure we've all faced barriers and hurdles throughout our path in sport. And looking back, what is one piece of advice you would give to yourself as you were progressing through this, or if you're, for the practitioners, maybe for the female athletes that you're working with, that one piece of advice. So we'll start with you, Alex, from the athlete side of things.
I would say just to trust yourself and to listen to your inner voice. And that goes with everything in terms of your physical performance and then your mental performance and emotional side as well. Is trust that you know what's best for yourself, and you can rely on those around you that have knowledge, but you, at the end of the day, you have to really be in tune with your inner self and needs.
Awesome. Now we'll go to the strength and conditioning voice. What would you tell either yourself or an athlete that you're working with?
I've actually had this question posed to me before, and my answer is not going to change. I would tell myself to move toward my fears, because growth does not happen where you're comfortable. And it is scary to make scary decisions. And I'm kind of thinking about this more from a career end, but if you are a female that is in a very male-dominated field like I am, I think you find that you have a lot of insecurities that come out because you're unsure if you're fit to do that job. And so you have to take the leap, and if it's scary, apply for the position, do whatever you think that you can do, but you have to move toward your fear because you're not going to grow within your comfort zone.
Awesome. I think that deserves a mic drop as well, because that is so applicable, not just to the career pathway, but for our athletes as well, because you need to push out of your comfort zone to continue to develop as an athlete and push your goals and dreams as well. So what a great piece of advice. Kristin, what about you?
So mine would be to speak up for myself. So kind of along the lines of what Alex is saying as well, but just understanding that, I know my body best, I know what I need best. And this is not just for sport, because I actually didn't learn this through my time in sport. I learned it later on. But yeah, just to speak up for what I need, and I know myself best, and I need to ask for what I need and advocate for myself.
Awesome. What about you, Michaela?
Yeah, so I would tell, athletes I work with, I tell them that you know your body best. And so you are in control of your body, is yours, you get to decide. So really echoing what Alex and Kristin just said, but you know your body best.
Amazing. And we'll turn it over to Ella, our advocate and our athlete.
I think I would say, and continue with the model that I've kind of, I think, gone through life with, is prove them wrong. Like being the only female, growing up in two different sports, like they're going to say things to you, and you're going to have guys that are the total opposite, where they're like the nicest to you and they're your best friends, but just continue to prove people wrong. Strive for, I guess, the best you can be, like strive for excellence and push yourself. I was in a situation in university where like I wasn't on like the top line, or I wasn't playing a lot. And I had coaches telling me like, you're never going to get there. You're never going to get there. Yet I'm on like a full scholarship. So I am there, but obviously you want to be the best you can be. And I think that situation made me a much better athlete altogether, because it just made me work that much harder. Thought I was working pretty hard, and I know I had put in the work, but it actually gave me that level up motivation that I needed. So yeah, just prove them wrong kind of thing.
I love it. When I think of this question, I think of my two young daughters, and kind of what I hope for them, with their future in sport. And all of this is amazing advice. I think the other thing I would add, outside of the knowing yourself and advocating and working hard and all of that, is to be confident. I think that's another thing that a lot of females sometimes lack, because we are always trying to push the bar higher, and confidence goes a long way for our young athletes as well. So that is the end of my questions. I just want to say to all of those that are listening, we've had a great panel today. I actually took the opportunity to creep you guys or look you guys up on social media and websites and whatnot. And I actually highly recommend that those listening do the same, because there's lots of great information from each of these panelists that they've got on their different platforms and whatnot. And it's a way to continue the education process on this topic. Also, for those of you who haven't listened to the previous two discussions in this series, please go listen to them, because they are equally as amazing as this session. And just, thank you to each of you on the panel for being here today. I know I've certainly learned a lot and feel more empowered from being a part of this. And thank you to James for asking me to be part of this great session.
This has been absolutely phenomenal. I don't know where to begin, but I do know how to end. And hashtag stick in the ground. That is knows no boundaries. Follow that. Make sure we do that. Make sure you get your stick in the ground in whatever form or fashion you see or feel fit. Having the brave conversations. There is a lot of life lessons here. One that continuously jumps out through this platform and this discussion and this series, Women in Sports. We are the expert of our own experiences, and expertise know no bounds. So wherever you are, tell your story, advocate for yourself, be heard and hear others. This is about community. This is about growth. This is about Ryan's first slide that was taking care of your people. And that starts with the self. Take care of yourself, take care of one another, continue to grow, continue to listen. To Jen, thank you so much for hosting this. A great job, paring this back to all of the guests and the panels and your experiences, and everything that you've done for myself and for our profession in athletic therapy. Again, take away the titles, take away everything, the information here, the quality of individual. Kristin, Michaela, Cassie, Ryan, Alexandra, and Ella, this has been unreal. So I know this isn't the end of this. This has just been very, very informative, breaking down barriers. It all starts with conversations and it grows from there. So I'll thank you from the bottom of my heart. I am truly grateful for your time, for your dedication, for your efforts, and for everything you brought today to your athletes, with your athletes, as an athlete, as a human being. Again, we grow and we grow together. This has been First Star Let's Chat. It's part 3 of Women in Sports. Part 1 and 2 are out by podcast already. This one will go to podcast this afternoon. Share with your friends, share with your colleagues. Jen, an amazing job hosting, and I look forward to connecting with all of you again into the future. Thank you so much. Thanks again for being here. Thanks for listening. Thanks for being a part of this community. Check us out online, firststartherapy.com. That's FIRSTAR therapy.com. Or email us with feedback, consult@firststartherapy.com, CONSULT @firststartherapy.com. on Instagram at firststar.therapy, and our podcast host at letschat.at. This is First Star Let's Chat, an athletic therapy podcast.